Hey everybody. So long time no see. A lot of stuff going on in my life. Have not been able to get out in Cecil really since Shasta, which was in February. That was really the last big trip, and did some engine work since that time, and just did some maintenance things like push rod tubes and stuff like that. But just not been able to really get out just due to being very busy on the weekends and things like that. So finally, and what I'm trying to do is I'm planning a trip on the New Mexico BDR route in Cecil. And it's probably going to, because it goes to such high elevations, you really can't do it much before June because you're going to have snow in the higher elevations. So, and by the way, let me introduce, I keep forgetting, I've done some snippets and things on some videos with Dash, but Dash is our 8-month-old. He's kind of a Jack Russell and he's kind of a Dachshund. He's kind of a mini Dachshund and a Jack Russell at the same time, but he is a love bug. And it's funny because I've only in my adult life I grew up with German Shepherds, but in my adult life, I've only had Jack Russells and Dachshunds, mini Dachshunds, and he's kind of a combination of the two. He's a very, very strange little guy. And you may be wondering what happened to Violet. Well, Violet unfortunately came to a tragic end in a, believe it or not, a group mountain bike ride up in Santa Fe, the least, place where I thought there would be a threat of predators, but we're pretty sure she just disappeared on a ride, and she never does that. She never leaves the group. She never does anything. A buddy of there were 3 of us riding. A buddy of mine had his dog, a big dog as well, which would have kept coyotes away. And all of a sudden we came to a stop and she had been with us, for a good solid hour. And we came to a stop and she wasn't there. And we heard coyotes yipping and doing things like that. And in New Mexico, that can happen. I've been told by many people that they've had coyotes approach them even with a dog on a leash, which seems ridiculous. But it's horrible, and it put me in a very bad way for a long time. But the thing of it is that now that I have some perspective on it, and the wounds have largely healed, mainly due to him, I really felt that was how Violet was meant to go. She was 10 years old. She wanted to go out in a blaze of glory doing what she loved to do the most, and that was running alongside the mountain bikes. It was really that's what her favorite thing to do in the whole wide world was, and that's how she went. And, our other dog, Jack, lived to be 18. The previous Jack Russell Terrier, Jack lived to be almost 19. And Jack was, he ended up just having the last couple years of his life were not good. I mean, it was not high quality. He was just losing, ability, and really it was sad. Then we finally had to get him put down because he had no quality of life. And my son had to handle that, which was brutal. But it was, after Violet went, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a break from having dogs. I've always had dogs. I've had dogs from the time, I can't remember a time when I didn't have a dog. Maybe when I was a pro bike racer in 1991, I was traveling so much. That was about the only time we didn't have a dog. And even then I was with Kim. But we just couldn't have a dog at that point because we were moving around so much. So I was like, I'm not gonna have a dog. And then I just so happened, it came up on my feed, probably because I was thinking about it and talking about it, came up on my Facebook feed, a Facebook marketplace ad for these dogs, and she billed them as Jack Russells. And I was like, I don't really think that's a Jack Russell, but I don't care. They're really cute. And she had one left, and I said, I'm coming up and getting them. So I drove all the way up to, I think it was Rye, Colorado. And it was like a freaking drug deal. It was like, she was like, we met at a burger place right off the interstate. She walked up with this adorable little dog. It could fit in the palm of my hand at that point. And I Venmo'd her some money, and she handed me the dog. And I was like, is there any paperwork? And she said, no, unless you want some, and we can make some. And I said, I looked down at him, and he's wagging and wiggling. And I said, no, I don't need anything. It's great. So that's when Dash entered my life. And if you can tell the names, it's Jack, Violet, and Dash, which were the kids in The Incredibles. So they're all incredible dogs, and Dash is no less incredible. He is amazing, great car dog, unbelievable overlanding dog, fantastic, super portable, and sleeps well, and potty trained and all that stuff. He's still working on some commands, but I'm not big on commands anyway. As long as he stays with me and generally comes when I call him, that's all I really need him to do. Any dog. So Anyway, so what I'm doing is I'm planning this BDR route, and what I want to do, what I'd love to do, is make this sort of like each year do a BDR route. And if you don't know what the BDR, it's the back road discovery routes. They have a great website, and they're all moto guys. They're dual sport, big bike, dual sport adventure bike guys. Like 1200s and things like that. These guys ride on rugged terrain. But the nice thing is that because they're such big bikes, they're not riding like motocross bikes. The terrain has to be doable, has to be rideable on a very large bike. So that's what these guys choose. They generally choose two tracks. They choose public two-track roads, which is what we love to overland on. And it's funny because I've only seen like a little bit of YouTube videos, a couple and things like that, of people doing overlanding on a BDR route, but these are public roads. I mean, there's no reason why you can't, for the most part. I'm sure there are sections in certain BDR routes. I know in the Northeast, I think there's a section of single track where they can only use the bikes. I think there's a section of single track on that. So those are always, you just plan for that, and you can turn around and go around and go take some roads and go around the darn thing. Many times that might bring you way out of the way, especially in the West. But you can do that. So my goal is to do an expedition and video the whole thing on the BDR route, which I'm stoked to do. And I'm probably going to do it at the end of June, and just go for it, and see how far I make it. And if I have breakdowns, and fix them and deal with them and all the trials and tribulations. So what I'm doing today is sort of pre-running a little bit and getting a feel for the area, which is the central segment in New Mexico, which is not far. It's the closest part of the route to my house, and that's generally from it starts in the low. I wanted to be in the low because there's still a lot of snow and mud in the upper mountains right now because it's April. So I'm going from Cuba generally down to Mount Taylor, and that's what I've been sort of exploring with some offshoots and some side routes for camping areas. So just bang off it for a little bit to go to some epic campsites. And that's what I've kind of been filming, and some historic sites as well, which are actually not on there. BDR does a great job of putting in points of interest on the maps. And I've got a couple around here that I know about that I'll feature on this video that are not on there. But I think it's really cool. And to do it in a 66, split window bus couldn't be cooler, I think. So who knows? There's all, some people think it's cool, other people think it's why in God's name would you want to do that? But it is just, you'll hear a lot of reasoning in all my videos as to why I'm doing this. It's just mainly just because it's so badass cool, and it's just so much fun to drive this thing. So that's kind of what I'm doing on this trip. And I'm also headed to Moab this week to ride bikes with a friend, and then do the Ottinger gathering, the bus gathering, which they do in the fall and the spring. And this is the spring trip, and that's just an awesome trip. So I want to do some shakedown, make sure the bus is running okay, and test my bike setup, which I'll go through in another clip, has been a bit of a fail. I've got this rather expensive, like $350 Thule rack, and it's the kind I think that's supposed to sit in a truck bed, and maybe that's the issue because it may need the truck gate to lean against the tire. But what I found is it seemed like it was really wobbly, and I guess that's the way it's supposed to be. But I think it needs that support because it ended up breaking. Thank God it broke. It broke at the base where it's holding the tire, and thank God it broke onto the rack. So you're going to see in some of the later video clips that I've got the bike sort of strapped down to the rack, which is fine. There was no damage to the bike, but I think what I'm going to try to do tonight is to use it for Moab, is try to really bolt that tire tray fixed to the rack part of it, which is rugged. The bottom part of it's rugged, but for some reason they just have these 4 screws, which I'll go into. I'll show you that are meant to give or something. I don't know, meant to give it some give. But it ended up being not nearly enough to hold the weight of the bike without the having other support. So, and that's probably my fault, but I'm gonna try to modify it so it will work for that, because I really love the system here. I can easily put it up and down by stepping on the step right here, and it just works great to keep a bike. Plus, I to be very honest, I like when I'm out solo, and I'm way out there. I mean, I'm far from anybody. I've seen like 2 people this entire time I've been out exploring, and we're way the heck out. If I need to, I've got a little harness for him, and I can just ride to Civilization if I had to. I could ride for a couple hours and be back at Civilization if I had to do something like that. So or meet somebody to pick me up, or who knows. I've still got all sorts of communications. Actually, pretty decent phone coverage out here the whole time. So there's really not the need for that, but it's just nice to have. And I happened to do a bike ride before this trip on the way out, so that was why I had it with me. But it is nice to have that security. It's pretty awesome. So anyway, so look for plans. I'm gonna keep maybe doing little pre-runs on the low areas while things thaw out in the high areas. But I really want to plan this thing for late June. It's probably the perfect time to do it because I can go way up high in the mountains. I was testing out doing some very steep switchbacky climbs, which we have right near Cabezon. No problem with the bus. Just went right up. Absolutely no problem gearing wise or anything. I didn't need to over clutch, or in the Vanagon, I'd be over geared for it. I'd probably have to clutch a little bit more. Here, it just crept right up, which is always astonishing. So the first gear in this thing is low enough that it can do the steeps. It also did great compression braking on the way down. Pretty awesome. So anyway, I'm headed on the way back right now. The one thing that is a concern in the bus, which I found, I actually had to cut my loop. I was going to do a long loop through the wilderness area and back out to the BDR, sort of like a little oval I was going to do, but I couldn't. I was looked down. I was like, I'm not going to have enough fuel. And even all the stuff, it only has an 8-gallon tank. Some guys put in a bay window tank, which I think is in my future. I think I would love to have. I think the bay window tanks are 10-gallon. They might even be 15. But they're much larger. A couple guys in the Shasta had them, and they don't even have to worry about fuel. They've got tons of fuel. So I think that might be something in my. I think it's a direct replacement. I don't think you need to modify anything to put it in, or maybe just some mounts. So that is going to be something I'm going to look into because I am constantly dealing with fuel. Because it probably only gets 12 to 15 miles to the gallon at best on the trail. And so I just don't have a lot of range. I do carry a 5-gallon tank. I got another 5-gallon one. I love these metal tanks. I carry 2 plastic ones for Shasta, which I don't like at all. They kind of crimp down and they're just not very stout. But the metal tank, I've ordered another jerry can just to go right beside it. So they'll both just strap in with the same strap, and that'll be awesome. And I'll be able to, then I'll have good range. Then I could have done the whole thing. And then I think it gives me 18 gallons of range, which would be great. That'll be really good to have out here. So, and that'll easily get you from point to point from all the fuel points, which they put right on the BDR maps. BDR is great because it's just a website. You download the GPX tracks and you can upload them to Gaia. Fantastic. And that's what I want to do. I won't do the whole thing. I'm going to probably go from Colorado or maybe south of there. And I'll probably go to Truth or Consequences, which is right on I-25. Maybe to Cloudcroft area, that area. I got to see how I'm doing on time because I want to be able to do the whole thing in like 4 or 5 days. So, and I'm going to be videoing, which really slows things down. So I'll see how far I get, but I at least want to get to Truth or Consequences because from there I can just blast right back up on I-25 and I'm done. So look for more info on that, and glad to be back in the game. And I'm also going to I ended up acquiring this very, very cool little Jeep. I had seller's remorse when I sold Wilson, my 53 Willys, which was just so fun for Western wheeling. It's open air and everything. And I ended up selling that after I hurt my neck a couple years ago because I was like, I don't want to be tempted to do anything extreme and stuff like that, even though I really wasn't, and I had a great roll cage in it. But I ended up selling it to a buddy, and I was bumming about it. And then this rather famous CJ5 came up for sale, and I'll do a more elaborate reason. I'll do a little video on that, but that came up for sale locally on Facebook Marketplace. And this thing has been on the cover of magazines and things like that. Very old school build. What attracted it to me is I grew up on the Jersey Shore, and all the cool surfer kids had CJs, had 70s vintage CJs with like a mild lift in 33s that they would cruise around the Jersey Shore. And I always I just wanted one of those. I wanted one of those so badly. So that when I saw this on there, I was like, oh man, I gotta have that. So that's kind of my new wheeling rig, and I'll be doing more hardcore exploration on that with more technical terrain. Just awesome, open top, windshield down. It still has a full cage. I got a couple little videos where I've done some snippets on that, which you can see on New Mexico Overland. But I'll do some actual trip videos on that as well. So pretty cool stuff happening. Glad we're in the warmer weather again, even though it's pretty mild in the winter here anyway. But look for this vid hopefully I'll get it out shortly. Take care. So you might be wondering how I'm navigating the BDR when it's just that when they just have a website that shows the route. But what they do have is you can download the GPS tracks for the entire route on any of the routes, and then it's very easy to use Gaia GPS. You just upload them to your own Gaia account and it'll populate and sync on all your devices, and that's generally what I use in the West is Gaia. I use Onyx when I'm just four-wheeling and stuff like that. I'll use other apps, but I use Gaia almost exclusively for overlanding, just because it's so easy to take these other GPS tracks that I've got and be able to follow that route on the on my iPad, which is what I'm videoing with right now. It's on a RAM mount on the roof of the bus, or on the ceiling of the bus, and it works pretty well. It's a little shaky, it's a little loud, but it works really well. So I can actually drive and talk, and you kind of get the background, you kind of get the fact that I'm going. So yeah, it works really well. It's pretty foolproof, and it has the whole entire route. It also has waypoints and points of interest, camping spots, provisioning spots, fuel spots. They've done all that work. So you just aim for those things. And as you're zooming into these villages, which are, believe me, in New Mexico, they are very few and far between. You go long periods of, it's a real major concern whether you bring enough fuel in extra fuel cans on this trip, because there will be times when even a small village, the gas station it's a little like actually Baja, where the gas station that you've been relying on is not even open. So you got to make sure you bring plenty of fuel. So it's a real remote expedition, it feels like. I have not seen a car yet on the trail since I've turned off of 550. I've not seen another soul out here. I've seen some cows, and that's about it. In fact, the only thing that goes on back here is pretty much ranching. And that's about all I'm going to see, if I see anybody. So it really feels, it has this tremendous remote feel without actually being super remote, because we're not far from 550, and I have my bicycle, and if, I'm driving a ridiculously old vehicle, so if something were to really happen, I could always be mobile. I've got a little harness for him, so I can actually ride away. I've also got half the time I have cell coverage even back here, so it's not that remote. I've also got the satellite, the Zoleo, so but it really does it feels like you're in the middle of nowhere, and it's sort of this otherworldly atmosphere in the desert. You've got these mesas and buttes and stuff all over the place, rock formations. It's a really cool thing, and I'm only scratching the surface right now. It's awesome. This is your typical arroyo traverse. You kind of come down into it. Can't imagine what this is like when it's raining. Monsoon season must be just wiped out or filled with water, and then you just climb out of it. Pretty cool. Tons of those out here. Much cheaper than building bridges. This is a Chaco Anasazi outlier post. It relates to Chaco Canyon, which is really far away. But there was a whole network of these close, and apparently they would use these huge kivas, these big, I think it was their fire pit, to make a massive fire, to be able to warn of marauders. This is just a massive thing, the kiva pit. I'm not quite sure whether it was the fire pit or whether it was the meeting place, but there was definitely the information is that they would make huge fires at the tops of these buttes and mesas to be able to string along, like in the movies really, and string along these fires to be able to warn of oncoming conquerors. You can see all the structures that they have up here. And then there's the river here, which is actually flowing. So it's flowing with water. So this is around 900 AD. Come on, Dash. This is around 900 AD. So they say by 1100 they were pretty much cleared out of here. The whole Four Corners area was abandoned by 1300 AD, probably due to drought. So now I am in the position like you see in many overlanding videos where I'm looking for a camp spot, and it's getting dark rapidly, which as it does in the desert. It gets dark like instantly. And as I always watch like other overlanders who are at this point in their day, and they're like, we got to find a place to camp, and you always want to have an optimal place. I'm right near the Chaco Anastasi ruins, so pretty good spot. It's beautiful views, which I just filmed with my phone. So this is probably going to be it, but it's always like you want to go to the next site, but maybe over that hill there's going to be something that's going to be a little bit better. It's going to have a little better view. I tried to get down near the water, but there's just no access to it, at least from this side that I can see on the map. So I think I'll just camp, and I think I've got a couple bars of coverage as well, so I can do a couple Instagram things and have that, and I'll be away from the cattle. It's remarkable how much cattle there is out here, because there's not, I mean, you wouldn't think that there's that much to eat out here, but there really is. They eat all this desert grass and apparently thrive on it. Okay, here we are at camp. That is the Chaco Anastasi hilltop outlier area that we climbed up, and I filmed the kiva oven at the top, which I think is the oven. It looks like a little meeting place, but I don't think they would meet in the pit like that. I think they met in the little buildings, and I think that was where they made the huge fires so that they can warn for marauders. This is all BLM land, all totally public, open camping, and beautiful skies always in New Mexico. Beautiful night sky. I'm not going to cut the sunset. It was a little late, but you're getting a little bit of what we get every day. This purple sky at night. And I just made a quick fire. I've got a spark arrestor on here, really small wood, really good hardwood that burns cleanly. There's no crackling, no nothing. So I use this super small hardwood that I get specifically because it doesn't crackle and it doesn't create any sparks. So, and what this is just I've featured this before. This is my winter well stove. I'm going to just warm up some dinner on that tonight. And then it just goes up through, it's all stainless steel. It's bolted to the bottom. These are just pieces that I found to keep the heat off the wood, and it works great. And the one thing I did recently though is I have this little shield here, the heat shield. It was not doing a great job because you can see how it was sort of burning a little bit, or just darkening the wood up there. So what I did is I got some really good fireproof insulation that I've stuffed up in there all the way. It's a wrap, so I wrapped it around there, and then I put the sheath back on. And I'm hoping, yeah, that's like cold. I'm hoping that does the trick. That was my one remaining thing. I did my normal PKV engineering here to make sure it stays up because of all the jostling and off-roading I do. I just didn't want it to fall down. So, but it's really packed in there because I put quite a bit in there and just wrapped the sheathing around, which is like these screws on this side, and hopefully that'll work. This is the best part of owning a bus, a VW bus, is the camping. You come to camp and you park, and that's about your extent. I make a fire and I'm ready to go. This bed, which I'll show when I do that tonight, that seat folds out in seconds into a bed, and then I've got my sleeping stuff right on the other side, and I just fold all this out, my blanket and my sleeping bag. This is what I use as my pillow because it's Cecil the bus, and that's it. And so yeah, this is just a little, literally Campbell's soup can that fits absolutely perfectly over the top when I take the spark arrestor off. So that's what I keep on there when I'm underway. Keeps the rain out. But this is, like I was saying, this is the best because you're sleeping inside. There's coyotes yelping already. I'm just afraid for Dash a little bit, but I'm going to keep him inside for the rest of the night. And but you're inside, and if you have to, you are quickly able to get in the driver's seat and drive away. Keep the keys right in it, lock the doors, and these louvered windows on the Westie buses, the SO42 campers are just amazing. So you can just really regulate your heat and your airflow across from you all night long. I usually start out, with it quite warm in here, and then as the fire goes out, I just close the windows each time I wake up, and a couple times during the night, and that's it. Like I've said, I think I've featured this before. This is my little wood bin. It's also where I keep some fluids. I have an extra jack. Tons of room in here, so I've got all the wood I'm going to need last me for a good few nights. And then I've got my gear oil, I've got engine oil, I've got a little pan there that I can drain oil out of. I've got a jack, a little jack stand that's also a jack there, and I keep my butane for the heater, which is right up there, but I don't use that at night. I just use that when I'm underway and I can watch it and control it. You stay, boy. This is my little pantry where I keep food up here. I keep some cooking stuff here, utensils and cooking apparatus and pots and pans in there. And then I really only use a cast iron pan. That's really about it. Just keep some other stuff here, tire inflator, Camelback for the bike in case I have to bug out and need to plant this guy and ride out. I can always do that. Pee bottles and water bottles ready to go for the evening once the door is closed. When it's real hot, which is great, I have this rear safari window, which is incredible. These are pretty rare to have safari windows, but I've splurged and got this right away because it's just wonderful. When it's real hot out, I can just open this up and I'll open up the two front safaris as well, and I will get airflow all the way through. This is my little split window bus radio. So I'll open these up and I've got just airflow coming through, which is great. It's pretty chilly. It's in April now, so in the desert, it'll probably get down to 40 tonight or something, 45 out here. But it's not windy, which is great. So that's really it. But it's just the wonderful simplicity of it and having your bed ready to go, which is also just a huge area. When I'm at events and things, when I go to some bus gatherings, I'll have 7 people in here comfortably sitting around the stove at night. It's just so comfortable. You get in here, it's cozy, and people can just hang out around the stove. And even with the doors open, it stays super nice and warm in there. And the wood stove is always just a game changer. It also doesn't make any noise. I pin these little, these are where you put pots and pans. You can also, they're drying racks as well. So I pin these over and gather them, so it's dead silent. I put the spark arrestor inside underneath the grate so it doesn't bang around. Always trying to minimize noise in a bus because it's really, it'll sort of magnify it. And that's really it. That's the whole setup. But this has become my primary overlanding rig. I'm finding these days that I love to have an overlanding rig that is just fun to drive on its own. And that's the whole purpose of the bus, is that it's you know, you can have the most amazing overlanding rig, and people do, and I do not fault them for having, you know, brand new Tacomas, brand new Jeeps, and everything else as overlanding rigs. They're great and they're really reliable, and Lord knows I've had my issues and difficulties with this bus keeping it running. But man, does that make it fun. You're just so thankful, honestly, to get to where you're going. And when it's going well, you are high as a kite just driving it. All you want to do is just drive it. And it doesn't matter where you're going or what road it is. It doesn't matter at all. You just want to drive it because it's just so much fun, and you're so pleased that it's going well and that it's actually functioning. And these things are just, they always amaze me how remarkably capable they are. They are like having a stock 4x4, just about, because they have such good traction in the back with all the weight back there and the swing axle and the low gearing in first gear. It's just awesome, but it's just dead simple. You don't have to engage anything. When it's tough terrain, you just put it in first gear and drive it. A lot of times you have to do some momentum, so the skill level on this thing and the learning curve is big. But it's once you get it, and once you're, you know, I'm sure I'll always be learning. It's just some of the most fun thing to do, and it makes just driving normal forest roads a blast to drive, which is the whole purpose of this thing. And it just also the comfort, and it does have a remarkable amount of practicality with the amount of space that it has. And just the way you can keep stuff, and I can have the bike on the roof and it's out of the way. That's my recovery. That's where I keep like camp chairs, recovery bin. I keep a little siphon, the little plastic tube siphon so I don't have to get the gas can. And you'd be amazed how often I do use the gas can for gas. I'll probably need it on this trip because I only have an 8-gallon tank. So, but it's just, you just siphon it out and boom, 20 seconds later, the whole thing empties 5 gallons into the tank, which is great. I'm really good for Shasta snow trip where you have to be able to gas up in seconds at the brief stops that they make. So, but this box is great. I got this at Home Depot. I put some U-bolts on it that bolt it down, and it's so perfect because you just climb up here, and it does lock, although I'm not locking it. It's got a little key lock right there, but you just climb up and it stays open like that. It doesn't flap all the way over. It's just absolutely perfect. It's waterproof. It's got a little gasket there, so even if it's pouring rain, everything's going to stay dry. This is my one of these little siphon thing, the little ball siphon, and I've got 2 camp chairs that fit just absolutely perfect in there. I've got all my recovery gear, my kinetic rope, and everything underneath. It's just awesome. So this is a game changer because it got all this out of the actual bus. Welcome to morning in the desert. There's literally the only sign of human inhabitants is this fence. There's nothing around. Every direction. It's probably about 55, 60 degrees right now. It's delightful. So this is my Italian coffee maker set up. It was warm enough this morning with the sun coming in the window that I didn't need to make. I made a fire early at about 4 in the morning just to take the chill out of the air, and then I just used my my little camp stove to make the coffee, which is, I just find this to be the best coffee setup. Minimal cleanup, easy to make. I actually make the coffee. I put the water and the coffee in the night before, so it's just ready to go, and I pop it on the thing and turn it on and let it brew while I'm still in bed. This is the famous Z bed. So you really just, all you do is fold it up and put it down in right there, and that's it. And you can see there's plenty of room above my cooler. It kind of sits on it just a little bit, but it fits. No, it pretty much is right on the money. So that's the perfect size cooler for this thing. I always get these Coleman Boy Scout bags. I love them. They're cheap, they're easy to find, they're easy to replace, and you know, I've got the dog in there all the time and stuff, so I'll use them for a few years and then I just get a new one. This is actually a really high quality wool blanket from like Hudson Bay Company or something. This blanket is great because it's great for a huge range of temperatures. For last night I just needed one. It's huge, so I can fold it, but last night I just needed 1 layer but I can fold it in two and it gives me double the heat. I mean, double the warmth. And it holds, like I can shake it out with the dust. There's so much dust all the time. I can shake it out. It just works great. And this bed is so comfortable. This is the original OG fabric. This is the original OG seating material, and it's got like a 6-inch foam thing in the middle. It's super comfortable even without an extra foam mattress. Just amazing. Yeah, last night I was exhausted. I think I fell asleep at like 9:30. I was out cold, and then slept throughout the night super well, because you feel so secure when you're inside something. Like I used to sleep in a tent early on, and I never slept well. I always just tossed and turned all night, and every single noise woke me up, which is why I always sleep in my vehicles now. Whenever I mean, I can't remember. I have a tent cot. It's about the only other thing I'll use, but even that I don't like to use. So we're just gonna hang out here a little while, and then we're gonna explore further on the BDR and actually take some tangent trails, explore those. Just amazing. It's so peaceful out here. It's like you just don't want to leave. You just want to sit and meditate. Which is something I never ever do. It's just so still and quiet, and you can hear the birds in the background. It's absolutely amazing. Dash likes it too. Okay, another little hack after years of doing this stuff is going to the bathroom. In the desert and in the West, sometimes you can't dig a hole. Here I can easily do it and just find a discreet spot. Always dig a hole when you can. So what I carry is, and if you can't dig a hole, it's okay to just put rocks. I've been told you just stack rocks over it, and that's all you can do. But what I have just developed this kind of cool system of my little potty setup. I just keep a roll of toilet paper in a freezer bag. And I've got one of these cool shovels, which these things are great. These are probably 20 bucks on Amazon. You can cut wood with them. They're just awesome little shovels. They store anywhere. And what I do is I take this guy. This is another little just cheap camping stool, and I just cut a hole in it. And it sounds utterly ridiculous, but it works so well, and it stores easily. I keep one of these in all of my vehicles, and you just sit right down on it. If I keep some hand sanitizer in there if you want to, but you can just set this thing anywhere, and you go, and it goes right through. And then when you're wiping, you reach through the back like that with your whatever hand, your right hand, left hand. You just reach through and wipe while you're sitting there. And I like this thing. It's so comfortable. I end up sitting, my God, I sit and just contemplate. And this is probably too much information, but it works great. So these are 10 bucks or something on Amazon or any camping store. Super cheap, and you just cut a hole right in the middle of it. And the best thing about it is it stores so nicely. So you don't have this big, huge potty that you're having to keep somewhere. This just goes anywhere. For me, it stores right under my spare right there. And I have a full-size spare in this guy. It's just great. So, little hack there. Sorry, TMI. So here we are up on a higher elevation plateau. We're in a wildlife management area, and tons of nice grass and everything. It's beautiful up here. Lots of pine. And I need gas because I only got an 8-gallon tank, so I carry 5 gallons on the roof for a trip like this. I've actually ordered another can so I can carry 10. Just keep them side by side. Super easy to refill. Just use this little ball siphon, and I just put the end of it in the spout, put the other end of it to the bottom of the can. I shake it like 3 times, and it flows out. It takes maybe 20 seconds for the whole 5 gallons to flow in. Not sure how that happens, but it's way faster than even pouring it in from the can, like a lot faster. So I just let it all drain out. I let it dry out. Take the end of it out of there. Just sort of let it drip. And it's already almost dry. And then I just put it right back in the case up here so it doesn't smell like gas inside the cab. It's just great. It's a great setup. And And I've hit branches on this thing before. It's a super stout can, so it just takes it really nice. Works out great. So we're gonna make our way through to this is actually a bypass on the BDR that has a beautiful steep climb up to this wildlife area. And we're gonna hopefully, last time I was up here it was gated, today it wasn't. So hopefully it's gonna go all the way through to the Mount Taylor side. You can see the snow up on Mount Taylor right there. And so we're not gonna hopefully get up that far. We're gonna intersect into it and then take the desert way out. And that's gonna be our mission today. Hopefully we'll get through. It's a lot of use on this road, so I got fingers crossed it'll go through.